The following KTVB special was pre-recorded for broadcast at this time.
Hello, I'm Dee Sarton, and this is Idaho Celebrates. Just look at silvery Lake Coeur d'Alene. Its beauty and charm have been an integral part of North Idaho's history over the past 100 years. As you will see, the lake characterizes a trait that runs deep in North Idahoans. It works hard and it plays hard. Life on the lake is a luxury cruise in 1989.
This portion of Lake Coeur d'Alene we're in at this time, ladies and gentlemen, is the widest portion of the lake.
People from all over the world come to enjoy Lake Coeur d'Alene.
Yes, I really do. It looked just like an Norwegian fjord.
National Geographic says it's one of the 5 most beautiful lakes on the planet. But in the early days of Idaho's history, people hardly had time to notice. Lake Coeur d'Alene was a workhorse, a highway in and out of the mines in the 1880s, and then at the end of the century, gold in the form of white pines was being harvested from the St. Mary's Valley and the Coeur d'Alenes. Massive log drives were staged on the St. Joe River and Lake Coeur d'Alene. But once the railroad was built, it became easy and affordable for folks to travel from Spokane to Coeur d'Alene. Boarding a steamer and relaxing on the deck with a cool breeze blowing on your face became the weekend getaway of choice. Excursions like this one have been popular since the end of the 19th century. As a matter of fact, an article in the Coeur d'Alene Press from that time describes the excursions this way: "In what is there more concentrated bliss than to take your best and sweetest girl boat riding, with naught but the whispering pines and the dear little fishes to witness your ethereal bliss." 100-year-old Effie Edwards was a steamboat captain during that romantic era. As far as anyone knows, she was the only woman pilot on the lake. For about 50 cents, you could ride on her luxurious pleasure boat.
Oh, we went to Coeur d'Alene to St. Mary's. Made the trip each day.
Effie and boat captains on the lake today say one thing has not changed in the 90 years since people began taking excursions here.
You know, I've never heard anybody that hasn't said that this is at least comparable to the one, you know, the most beautiful area they've ever seen.
For the ultimate view of the lake, step off your boat and onto a seaplane. A North Idaho tour book describes what you'll see this way. The picture is still very close to what it was when the Indian tribes were the only human participants in the drama. Pristine, close-packed forests cover the mountains up to the crests. If a North Idaho resident from 200 years ago were able to join in the flight, the major differences he would notice would be the occasional clusters of buildings at lakes' edges and on riverbanks, the bigger towns sitting snugly along the woodsy drapery of the mountain folds. Well, with that kind of promise, the buzz of the seaplanes can be heard every few minutes.
Where are you guys from?
Brooks.
From Brooks, Alberta. Now that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
You're flying with the Brooks Seaplane Service from Brooks, Alberta.
But this bird's-eye tourist trip also had practical beginnings. Bill Brooks started his business on the lake in 1946 to train GI vets from World War II. But times have changed, and Bill is changing along with them, a theme played out in most North Idahoans' lives. It's interesting to note where the name Coeur d'Alene came from. Long before Idaho became a state, French-Canadian fur trappers gave the Indians they traded with a backhanded compliment when they referred to them as the Coeur d'Alenes. The trappers said the Indians traded with a pointed heart the size of an awl's point. In French, Coeur d'Alene, heart of an awl. Coming up next, we'll meet the Coeur d'Alenes, an Indian tribe rich in heritage and determined to pass it on to the rest of us. Welcome back to Idaho Celebrates. Arthur Härt joins me now. He is the Director Emeritus of the Idaho State Historical Society to give us some historical perspective. And Arthur, we are in front of one of the oldest buildings still standing in Idaho.
The oldest building, Dee. It's the mission of the Sacred Heart to the Coeur d'Alenes. It was begun in 1850, was first used in 1853, and we're here on a very special occasion, the Feast of the Assumption.
For the past 149 years, members of the Coeur d'Alene tribe have made this pilgrimage to the mission of the Sacred Heart to mark the coming of the Black Robes. The Black Robes were Catholic priests, men who had been foretold by an ancient Coeur d'Alene chief and welcomed by the tribe for their healing powers. Tribal members of all ages participate in the festivities wearing traditional Indian clothing. They say it's a time to pray, dance, eat, and sing together, a time to return to the ancestral homeland. The tourist or the casual observer could miss a lot with just a visit to the Cataldo mission without a visit to someone who has deep cultural ties here. We're fortunate to have Jeanne Givens joining us today. She is a Coeur d'Alene tribe member and also a former state representative. Jeanne, I'm going to ask you to give us a brief history lesson on the connection between the Coeur d'Alene Indians and the Cataldo mission.
149 years ago, the Black Robes, the Jesuit missionaries, came through this area, and they were on a mission, of course, to Christianize the native people. At the same time, at this very spot where we're sitting, Circling Raven and his people were facing some very difficult times. There was illness among the tribal people. The work of the medicine man was not healing this young person, so the tribe prayed and prayed. Eventually, the Black Robes, the missionary, the Catholic priest, came and healed the child, and that began the very beginning of the Christianity movement of the Coeur d'Alene people. Since then, the Coeur d'Alene tribal people have been Catholics and hold on to the Catholic faith very, very strongly. So today, the August 15th Feast of Assumption represents a coming back, a pilgrimage back to an ancestral homeland. The present-day Coeur d'Alene Reservation is located 60 miles away, but this is where the original Coeur d'Alene people were. We're here along the Coeur d'Alene River, and this is a real natural place for us to be. It feels very good to be here among friends, to pray, to eat together, to sing together, and to dance. It gives you a total, complete feeling, and it's a very special day here.
Jeanne, thanks for that background. And now Arthur Härt has a special report for us on the building of the Cataldo mission with the help of the Coeur d'Alene Indians.
26 years ago, the old mission was declared a National Historic Landmark. It's one of only 2 buildings in Idaho to be so honored. Today, thousands of visitors from all over the world come to see this great historic building. Every August, the Coeur d'Alene Indians make their holy day pilgrimage to the Cataldo mission, a custom dating back many years. This picturesque building, built by the Coeur d'Alenes in the 1850s, is an architectural masterpiece. Its construction was supervised by a remarkably talented Jesuit priest, Father Antonio Ravalli. The old mission has often been the center of attention in Idaho. During the U.S. bicentennial in 1976, its restoration was the Gem State's most important project. Father Ravalli, an Italian native, not only designed this building, he created many of the remarkable works of art that decorate it. Hundreds of Indians from the Coeur d'Alene tribe worked several years building the mission, and while it was built during the 1800s, the method of construction was ancient. These exposed walls demonstrate the technique used to fill in the spaces between hand-hewn timbers in the frame. It is called wattle and daub. Straw, plastered with mud, is hung on a framework of slender saplings woven together. The most striking feature of the mission's exterior is the Baroque false gable. modeled after Father Ravalli's memory of the mother church of his order in Rome. Its silhouette, marked by finials shaped like urns, give it the character of much older churches in Italy. The 6 great columns that support the porch were shaped from solid tree trunks. They are classical in form. In 1853, the newly appointed governor of Washington Territory, Isaac I. Stevens, visited the mission, and he was impressed not only with the building, but with the Coeur d'Alene Indians as well. This lithographic view of the mission was published in Stevens' report. He wrote, "I was much struck by the comparative civilized condition of the Indians at the Coeur d'Alene mission. They have been well taught by the indefatigable labors of the fathers and laymen at the mission. The fathers taught the Indians much more than construction and religion. They also introduced the Native Americans to farming. The Coeur d'Alenes, more than other Northwest tribes, seem to adapt well to agriculture. Stevens found a 200-acre farm and nearly 3,000 acres of grazing land. They had 100 pigs, 8 yokes of oxen, 20 cows, and a number of horses and mules. After thousands of miners and traders began to pass by the mission on the main road across North Idaho, the fathers convinced the Coeur d'Alenes to move so they would not be corrupted by the whites. Their new home became De Smet, Idaho, and the mission at Cataldo was abandoned, except for masses on special occasions. When final boundaries for the Coeur d'Alene Reservation were drawn, the old mission at Cataldo was not included. The annual pilgrimage each August shows the special place the mission holds in the hearts of many Idahoans, both Indian and white. It is undoubtedly the state's most significant historic building. The old mission is not only Idaho's most historic site, it is one of the most beloved sites in Idaho. And unlike some associated with warfare between cultures, the old mission brought cultures together.
Thankfully, this year's centennial celebrations will include many contributions from our state's 6 Indian tribes, including an all-Idaho Indian exposition next July at the Western Idaho Fairgrounds. And joining me is Delbert Farmer. He is the executive director of the exposition. Delbert, tell us what we have to look forward to.
The expo includes 3 events. The first 2 events will be at the fairgrounds. It will include a powwow, which includes dancing. The other event will be exhibits and displays of each tribe's history and culture. The third event is a Indian Issues Conference at Boise State University.
Delbert, I had heard early on in the discussions about centennial celebrations that the Indian tribes had some concern that this was a white man's celebration and that there was some controversy about becoming involved. Why was the decision made to get involved, and why are our state's Indians excited to be a part of this now?
All the Indian tribes were invited to a meeting, and we debated the issue, why be involved with the state centennial. It was decided at that meeting, which took place in July 22nd of 1987, that this was a tremendous opportunity for the tribes to educate the public about Indians and Indian reservations.
Well, we're glad you're taking that opportunity, and we'll look forward to the exposition next July. Delbert, thanks for being with us, and we'll continue Idaho Celebrates right after this.
Tourism's always been an important part of our economy, but it's become a much bigger part of our economy now and takes its rightful place alongside lumber and mining and agriculture as well. And tourism is a big part of our economy now.
As we just saw, the Cataldo Mission is an historic landmark in North Idaho, but looming behind me is a modern-day landmark, the Coeur d'Alene Resort.
But Dee, even 100 years ago, before resort hotels were even thought of, folks were coming up here in droves to enjoy North Idaho's beauty. But to be honest with you, the scenery was probably incidental. What they were really after was gold. In the brisk fall air of 1882, A.J. Pritchard and a friend washed out a panful of gravel and recovered a handful of gold nuggets. That was all it took to create a gold rush. By the spring of 1883, 100 men ready to find their bonanza arrived in what would become North Idaho's first town, Murray. Like most gold rush camps, Murray was at first a town of tents and shacks thrown together with whatever material was available. Even the first bank was only a tent with a banker keeping the gold in vials under his bed. The town quickly grew. By that winter, more than 5,000 residents had moved into Murray. There are literally hundreds of interesting stories that come out of old mining camps like Murray. Among them, the story of W.R. Davis, a man who had a dream. His dream was, well, about gold, but that's not so uncommon for prospectors. However, in his dream, he dreamt of the exact spot where he found his bonanza. Well, the next morning he told a friend about it, and since it was so close to town, they decided to go check it out. Well, as it turned out, there was more gold than he could ever dream of. But like most gold rushes, the easy-to-find gold soon ran out, and so did the prospectors. By that time, deposits of silver began to spring up in the area, and a new rush was on. This one, however, would last a little longer. So much silver was recovered from this part of North Idaho that it was dubbed the Silver Valley. Kellogg soon became the big city in these parts, named after Noah Kellogg, the reputed discoverer of the Bunker Hill lode. There were dozens of mines up here, Bunker Hill being the largest, but it wasn't a shortage of the commodity that closed the mines, it was the price. It plummeted from a high of $48 to less than $4 an ounce in just a few years. It soon became too expensive to mine silver in Idaho's Silver Valley. Today, just a fraction of the original mines are still operating. But as Idahoans have seen all too often over the past 100 years, the metals market is incredibly unpredictable. Sometimes it's feast and sometimes it's famine. But now a new industry has come to town, hoping to take the ups and downs out of North Idaho's economy. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, the closure of the nation's largest silver mine, Bunker Hill. North Idaho's unemployment soared to record highs, and hundreds of miners found themselves looking for other jobs. Meanwhile, in Coeur d'Alene, businessman HAGADONE and his partners were looking for ways to capitalize on the beauty of North Idaho. In 1983, a multi-million-dollar renovation project had begun on the old North Shore Hotel, a project some saw as the beginning of economic recovery for this part of Idaho.
Tourism's always been an important part of our economy, but it's become a much bigger part of our economy now and takes its rightful place alongside lumber and mining and agriculture as well. And tourism is a big part of our economy now.
In May of 1986, the largest resort hotel in Idaho opened and tourists began discovering North Idaho. While developers say this resort is no doubt the catalyst for the boom in tourism in this area, the natural beauty and recreational possibilities are the real reasons so many are planning vacations and conventions here. Just as it did when miners found silver in North Idaho, there appears to be no end in sight to tourist-related development. In Kellogg, a town that nearly dried up and blew away when Bunker Hill shut down, there are smiles on the faces of many business owners and residents. The world's longest gondola, stretching from the edge of town to the new Silver Mountain ski area, is scheduled to begin operation next spring.
I think it's going to take a while to change, but I think it's going to be fun. I'm really excited about it. The gondola should be built this time next year, and we'll have the grand opening of it in May of next year, and it'll go along with the Centennial, Idaho Centennial. And so I'm really excited. I think it's going to be neat. I think we're going to get a lot of tourists. We're getting more every day, and we've started to see some response on having our building done this way. We're getting tourists that stop in, and so we're pretty excited.
Money to pay for the multi-million-dollar gondola project came from tax levies, government grants, and donations. Now, Kellogg's business owners are trying to turn their town into an alpine village.
Because we get people from Canada, we've got people from all over the United States, and they drive through town and they see our building and they stop and they just want to buy something. Some people say, I just want to buy anything, you know, just so long as they have something from that it's the building.
On the opposite end of the valley, just outside Coeur d'Alene, Gary Norton is continuing to expand his theme park. Norton is a true pioneer, investing millions of dollars in a very risky business.
No doubt a pioneer. We're going to pull the arrows out of the back next week. It's definitely a pioneering project because of the low density of population, but the area is growing tremendously with tourism. And I expect in a few years with the gondola project and what Dwayne has been doing downtown that this definitely is going to continue to grow in that area.
SILVERWOOD opened in 1988 and attendance surpassed expectations. Along with the old steam engine, train, and antique aircraft, Norton says he will open a new section at his park next summer.
We're turning this extra parking lot we had here into an amusement park. We're adding a log flume ride. I'm looking to bring in a coaster and a lot of other little rides and attractions, midway areas. It'll be themed more like an old fairgrounds would have been.
But operating a theme park in North Idaho is a little different than in a place like Southern California.
The worst problem is it's a short season. We've only got about 3 months or so of really good season when we stay quite busy. And we're now experimenting with off-season business by opening the park for dining and shopping.
But that is a problem that seems common to this entire area.
Our biggest challenge has been, and to a degree still is, seasonality. And that's why Silver Mountain, the new ski hill at KELLOGG, is going to be a great boon to all of us in North Idaho. It'll join Schweitzer Basin, which is a very fine ski area.
Until a real winter business is built up in North Idaho, hotel and shop owners, theme park and dog track operators, and everyone else involved in the tourist trade will continue to focus on the summertime business, but are confident North Idaho can and will become a year-round tourist destination spot.
First of all, tourism is an industry that we can really do something about. If you think about lumber, mining, and agriculture, they are very important to North Idaho and to our whole state. But so often they're at the mercy of commodity markets and forces that are beyond people's control. Tourism, on the other hand, is an industry we can really do something about with creative marketing and promoting. We can bring people that will come to our North Idaho area, spend their dollars, boost our economy, provide jobs, generate taxes, and all of those good things.
As we travel the state to bring you this special series of Centennial Reports, we are attempting to celebrate all that inspires the deep affection most Idahoans feel for their state. So enjoy and indulge in a sense of pride as we show you the graceful yet brilliant beauty of the Panhandle. Good night.